Thank you for watching the video. Below is the true story of a 25-year-old man named Caleb Mason, a landscaper. Although he traveled all over the place for his job, but out of compassion and also because of love at first sight for a woman who had just divorced her husband, he decided to stay. Don't forget to give Mason a loving heart and leave your feelings below. Despite the lack of charm, I found satisfaction in the tactile experience of turning an uneven lawn into something that looked neat. Life was somewhat simple until that fateful afternoon. The sun was low on the horizon as I parked the truck and headed back. My sleeves were stuck to my skin, soaked with sweat, as I contemplated the task of fixing a kitchen cabinet door that had been hanging crooked since last week. As I rummaged through my toolbox, I realized something discouraging. I was missing a large cross screwdriver, an essential tool to complete the task at hand. The house across the street is still in my mind. Elena Hayes resided there, a statuesque and strikingly beautiful woman, exuding an air of reserve, her neat brown hair framing her face and her shoulders held straight with poise. She appeared to be older than I, perhaps in her 40s, yet she maintained her home, her garden, and herself with remarkable precision. Each time I caught a glimpse of her from a distance, the sight invariably conjured the notion of control, embodying a persona that refused to allow anything to slip into disarray. We were merely acquaintances, exchanging a handful of greetings as we crossed paths at the post office, sharing a few pleasantries during Thanksgiving. Though I had never crossed the threshold of her home, today compelled me to seek out a screwdriver. I traversed the street and ascended the front steps. The porch light had remained illuminated since the break of dawn, casting a soft, pale yellow glow. I rapped my knuckles against the door thrice, yet silence lingered in response. Just as I was on the verge of turning back, the door creaked open, moving with a deliberate slowness, as though it were engaged in a struggle of its own making. Celeste lingered in the doorway, and I came to an abrupt halt. She had lost the meticulousness that typically defined her. Her hair fell in wild disarray, her makeup blurred and smeared around her eyes, her flowing cardigan draped gracefully over her torso. Her shirt was unbuttoned in several places. The hand cradles the glass of red wine, its contents nearly depleted. "Ethan," she uttered, her voice raspy, as though she had recently wept or shouted. Her gaze was locked onto mine, a fleeting mix of bewilderment and a brief escape from the confines of reality. "Excuse me, I simply wished to borrow a screwdriver." I stumbled over my words, a sense of awkwardness washing over me at the most inopportune moment. "Search the tool cabinet located beneath the stairs." She cut me off, then pivoted, leaving no room for my response. As I entered, I gently shut the door, sealing off the world outside. Within the confines of the house lay an entirely different realm. The fragrance of bergamot, essential oil, once a familiar presence as I walked by, had vanished. The perfect order had vanished. Tissues lay scattered across the floor. The sofa seemed to belong to another world, an incongruous presence in its surroundings. Soft cushions scattered across the floor. A silver-framed photograph rested face down on the table beside a drooping vase of flowers. The living room light flickered softly, casting an almost ethereal glow, as though it were on the brink of extinguishing itself. I halted in the midst of the passage, caught in a dilemma between seeking out an actual screwdriver or opting for a tranquil withdrawal. Celeste sank into the sofa, reclining as though wearied by the weight of the world. The glass, devoid of contents, slipped from her grasp and landed softly on the carpet, miraculously unscathed. It merely rolled to a halt. "I have just expelled Ray from my presence," she spoke, her gaze averted from mine. Her voice carried a flatness, devoid of any discernible emotion. I remained motionless. The name had crossed my ears previously. Her husband, the man frequently returning home in the late hours, stood beside his wife in the photographs adorning the hallway, his expression devoid of a smile. "Are you doing all right?" I inquired. An unwise inquiry. I was aware. Her laughter rang out. It carried a tone that was equal parts irony and fragility. "Is that all right?" "Absolutely not. Ethan, I find myself in a state of discontent. Yet, what if I claimed that I was fine? Could anyone possibly take me seriously?" For the first time, she lifted her gaze to meet mine. Those eyes, crimson and puffy, yet brimming with intellect, bore into me, seeking affirmation. Words eluded me. I merely inclined my head in response. "Would you mind taking a seat for a moment?" she inquired. Her voice was soft, as if she were making an effort to remain anchored to her own essence. I approached and settled onto the edge of the sofa, maintaining a slight distance from her. A heavy silence enveloped the room, stretching on for what felt like an eternity. A hush enveloped the living room. The clock on the wall ticked steadily, a persistent reminder that time continued its march, even as the world around them appeared frozen in place. Celeste let out a soft sigh, drawing her knees close to her chest, enveloping herself in a tender embrace. As her cardigan slipped from her shoulders, it unveiled her delicate collarbones, the skin beneath slightly flushed from the wine. I made an effort to avert my gaze, yet it proved to be a formidable challenge. "Are you aware?" she spoke, her tone devoid of emotion. "For 15 long years, I shared my life with someone whose trustworthiness eluded me. I chose not to respond. I had no need to. The inquiry served merely as a means for her to unburden herself from a heavy weight pressing upon her heart. From the very first year, I sensed his betrayal, yet I remained. I assured myself that circumstances would take a different turn. Each time he wept, he vowed to transform. I placed my trust in him, or I endeavored to place my trust in him. Perhaps it stemmed from a fear of solitude. Perhaps it was the belief that, at this stage of life, I would no longer be a choice for anyone. Her gaze met mine. This time, the gaze held steady. It carried a straightforwardness that bordered on defiance. My heart tightened, not solely due to her words, but because of that gaze, an interplay of longing to grasp something tangible and the trepidation that it might dissipate if I dared to draw near. She rose to her feet. I rose to my feet, driven by an instinctive urge. "I arrived seeking to borrow a screwdriver," she remarked, moving toward the hallway with deliberate slowness, as though she were gauging her own bravery. She paused, glancing over her shoulder. "Would you be able to come in?" The inquiry emerged with a certain ease, yet it bore an ineffable burden. Uncertainty clouded my thoughts. I have just followed. The bedroom basked in a gentle orange glow emanating from the bedside lamp. Silence enveloped the surroundings, yet my heart thudded loudly, breaking the stillness. Celeste found herself poised at the center of the room. with her back turned. With deliberate slowness, she lifted her hand to unfasten the first button of her blouse. I swallowed hard. I paused for a moment, drawing back slightly. Celeste, please cease. She remained motionless. Yet another button left undone. I advanced with a soft, deliberate motion. I rested my hand gently on her shoulder, that which she found pleasing. Appointments were not scheduled. We did not refer to them as meetings. It felt as though it had been woven into the fabric of everyday life, an aspect of existence. As Scout lingered by the fence, the rhythmic snip of pruning shears echoes through the afternoon air. On a Friday evening, I settled into the porch chair beside Celeste. A gentle breeze swept through the air. The aroma of rosemary drifted gently from the backyard. Fireflies began to flicker softly in the cool shade beneath the trees. What activities do you typically engage in during the weekends? She inquired. She rotated the delicate teacup in her grasp. I tend to the verdant expanse of Mrs. Langley's lawn. Next, I make my way to the service station to repair the tiller. In the quiet of night, I immerse myself in the pages of ancient tomes. Immerse yourself in the melancholic melodies of indie music. I chuckle softly. How about yourself? On Saturday mornings, I would frequent the farmer's market, enjoy a delightful waffle breakfast with Ray. Upon returning home, one might settle in to enjoy a Netflix binge. I continue to indulge in waffles, yet just a smidgen. Her lips curve into a smile, yet her eyes carry a certain emptiness. Perhaps you might consider inviting me to accompany you. I speak without restraint, then come to understand that I speak the truth. Celeste inclines her head thoughtfully, as though pondering a thought. I ponder. I am in the process of discovering how to embrace solitude without succumbing to a sense of emptiness. I incline my head in acknowledgement. I comprehend. I have lost the one I intended to marry. Half a year prior to the nuptials, she stepped outside. This is the first occasion on which I've expressed that to Celeste. She remains silent for an extended pause. Then gently, "Are you all right?" "I believe that to be the case," I declare, gazing upon the trees that stretch before me, not due to any lapse in memory regarding her. Yet I discovered the importance of not holding myself accountable. At that instant, bathed in the soft glow of the porch light, the evening air carries a gentle whisper of a breeze. A subtle change occurred in the dynamic between us, something that required no label. There is no commitment, yet it was as unmistakable as the fragrance of lavender carried by the breeze. Celeste reclined in her chair. Then they pivoted to meet my gaze. "Do you believe that every occurrence has a purpose behind it?" she inquired. I find myself uncertain. However, I ponder. At times, adverse events unfold to pave the path for something greater, something we may not yet be prepared to embrace. Her laughter rang out. That evokes the essence of an indie film script. Perhaps I am the one in charge. I gave a playful wink in a moment of unprecedented experience. Her laughter erupted, filling the air with joy. In that moment of clarity, it dawned on me. I longed to evoke that kind of laughter from her for all eternity. As dusk settled in, I arrived home later than I typically do. As I made my way across the street, Celeste remained poised on the porch, cradling a chilled glass of tea. Her gaze lingered on me, as though she had words poised on the tip of her tongue, eager to escape. Yet she remained silent. I never inquired. Some silences are meant to linger, untouched and unfilled. As I reclined in the embrace of my bed, gaze unblinking, not due to the coffee. As fear began to creep in, I felt a growing sense of unease, fearful that I was plunging into something too swiftly, although it may appear sluggish on the surface. Yet upon further reflection, I reconsidered. Perhaps genuine emotions cannot be quantified by the passage of time. Yet the tranquility that envelops you in the presence of another is truly remarkable. The following day, Celeste extended an invitation for lunch, merely a sandwich. She spoke over the phone. And don't worry if I end up making the chicken drier than a desert. A bag of cherry tomatoes accompanied me, a true savior in the kitchen. Yet the meal was unpretentious and remarkably flawless. We dined at the rustic table nestled in the garden, now adorned with vibrant blooms and freshly potted greenery. Upon completing the task of washing the dishes, a gentle drizzle commenced unexpectedly. Rather than hurrying indoors, Celeste emerged onto the porch, extending her arms to embrace the falling raindrops. Her hair began to glisten with moisture, adhering to her brow. She glanced in my direction, partly in jest, partially rebellious. "Do you have the courage?" I chose not to respond. I have just emerged into the world beyond, allowing the rain to cascade upon my shoulders, while the scent of damp earth seeps into my bare feet. We lingered in that moment, amidst the downpour, giggling as if they were carefree youngsters who had defied the boundaries. Leaves danced in the yard as the wind whispered through the trees. Scout dashed in endless loops, pursuing the essence of her own silhouette. As she pivoted in my direction, her eyes sparkled with an enduring brilliance, and I yearned to press my lips against hers, not driven by impulse, not from longing. Yet it was in that instant that she experienced her most exquisite sense of freedom, unprotected, unrestrained. I advanced a step. My gaze remained fixed upon her. She stood her ground, yet when the gap measured merely inches, Celeste inclined her head ever so slightly, softly murmuring, "Not at this moment." I hesitated. The head inclined slightly in acknowledgement. "I simply require the knowledge." "At last you have arrived," she uttered, employing the pronoun. For the first time in our conversation, I remained silent, merely remained in place amidst the shrouded drizzle, allowing my heart to quietly harmonize with the melody of the rain, her breath, and a connection that was blossoming between us, gradually, yet with determination. For nearly a week, the thought had been lingering in my mind. Is it the right choice for me to make? Had the moment arrived prematurely? Would it instill fear in her? Yet a thought crossed my mind. If not at this moment, when will it be? On a Friday afternoon, I arrived at Celeste's doorstep. As I stepped onto the porch, a slender envelope rested delicately in my hand. My hands trembled slightly, not out of nervousness, yet I was acutely aware that I was navigating through delicate ground, welcoming an individual on their journey to rediscover trust, to escape from it all. She swung the door open, clad in a soft, pale blue shirt. Her hands remained stained with earth, "Greetings, cultivator of the earth," she uttered, beaming. "Are there new plants? Superior to flora?" I uttered, elevating the envelope. Her brow furrowed in discontent. She settled onto the sofa, carefully opening the envelope. Her gaze lingered over the plane ticket, then paused at the striking text. "Palm Springs, setting off on Sunday at 8 a.m. "Ethan, what is this?" she inquired, yet her voice was soft and subdued. "Merely a thought," I declared, taking a seat opposite her. A week basking in the sun's warm embrace, accompanied by a pool, light on the mind. No pressure at all. There are no plans in place. A mere pause. "With you?" she inquired, her brows knitted together in a subtle display of concern. Alongside me. I inclined my head in acknowledgement. "However, if you wish to embark on this journey by yourself, I shall hold on to that ticket for you." Her gaze lingered on me, stretching into an eternity, prolonged and hushed. It was as though she were inquiring whether I truly meant it. "I'm uncertain," she murmured softly. "This is an experience unlike any I've encountered before." Nothing was ever abandoned. "I have yet to propose eloping to a woman who is my senior," I declared, partly in jest, partly earnest. She let out a fleeting laugh. "Yet, it is indeed true." She cast her gaze back at the ticket. Her gaze drifted toward the name. "Elena Hayes." Then, after a brief pause, silence enveloped the space. She exhaled deeply, as if a cork that had been tightly sealed for years had finally been released, allowing a rush of air to escape. "Alas," she uttered. "Very well, I shall take my leave." In the early hours of the morning, the flight departed from Asheville. Upon the aircraft, we occupied adjacent seats, yet our words remained scarce, not due to our lack of acquaintance. Yet there existed certain moments that required no embellishment of language. As the aircraft touched down in Palm Springs, the sun cast a golden hue over the far-off mountains. The sky stretched out in an expanse of unblemished blue. Celeste emerged from the airport, inhaling deeply as the fresh air enveloped her, as though her lungs had never inhaled this air prior to this moment. "It resembles an odd dream," she uttered. "It surpasses even the most delightful dream of waffles," I proclaimed. Her laughter rang out. "Do you recall those? No information was provided by you." She remained silent, yet the glance she cast my way as she turned was sufficient to convey that she had listened and comprehended. A cozy room was secured at a tranquil resort. A pool lay before us, chaises longues, and palm trees that danced gently, as though sharing secrets with the breeze. With the dawn of each new day, we strolled along the nearby trail, where the arid expanse embraced the base of the towering peaks. Wildflowers flourish on either side. Celeste donned her sneakers and gathered her hair into a neat tie. It was in that moment, for the very first time, that I witnessed her laughter erupt, sparked by the unexpected leap of a desert squirrel onto my hat. She laughed, her laughter free and unguarded, unconcerned about the presence of onlookers. In that moment of clarity, I came to a profound understanding. The woman had returned to life once more. On a tranquil afternoon, we lingered on the porch of the resort, gazing upon the desolate expanse of the vacant pool. Celeste propped her chin on her hand, lost in thought. Her eyes were filled with dreams. I believed that my journey through life would be shared with Ray by my side, she uttered, not with sorrow, as though she were recounting a tale from long ago. I am aware, I declared. In that moment, a thought crossed my mind. I would never open my heart to another again. I glanced in her direction. What comes next? She remained silent, merely uttered in a gentle whisper. I ponder. I admit my mistake. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow across the sky, the evening unfolded. We savored our meal beneath the twinkling string lights that adorned the heart of the restaurant's courtyard. Celeste donned a modest white dress. Her hair flowed freely, and she appeared as though 42 held no significance at all. It unfolded like a harmonious blend of experience and liberation. My gaze remained fixed on her throughout the whole duration. She captured my attention on several occasions. Rather than shying away from it, she grasped it firmly, gently, with purpose. Upon our return to the room, she placed her keys upon the table. Then they shifted their gaze in my direction. Will you remain? Her voice carried a serene quality, steady, not as desperate as before. With a deliberate motion, I advanced. I gently placed my hand upon her cheek, and for the very first time, our lips collided. The pace was unhurried. The perfect moment has arrived. The ideal individual. The perfect sensation. As dawn broke the following day, I stirred from my slumber. As she remained lost in her dreams, she stood with her back turned towards me, the blanket draped softly around her. The morning sun cascaded its golden rays upon her shoulders, radiating brilliance solely for those who have traversed the shadows. I did not lay a finger on her. I simply reclined in that stillness, observing the gentle rhythm of her breath. And I was aware. My heart was filled with affection for her. After dinner, we made our way back to the room, neither of us uttering a word. Yet the ambiance had shifted. Weariness has come to an end. No more uncertainty as in the past. Each stride, each glance exchanged held a subtle recognition. We had ventured into the realm beyond the known. Celeste removed her shoes, placed her purse upon the table. Then they turned to gaze upon me. We stood before one another, within the confines of the resort room. The air conditioner emitted a soft hum. The palm trees danced gently in the cool embrace of the night breeze beyond the window. There was no invitation. There is no necessity for inquiries. I strolled over. At a leisurely pace, she stood her ground. No progress made. She merely cast her gaze in my direction, direct and profound, as though to ascertain the sincerity of my intentions. I extended my arm upward, gently brushed her cheek. Then I gently slid my hand to the nape of her neck. She gently shut her eyes. Her breath came in rapid bursts. As I bent forward, my lips met hers, not with hasty fervor, yet with every ounce of tenderness I could convey through my touch. The kiss unfolded slowly. It came softly, like a whisper in the night. No more battles await you. I have arrived. We intertwined as though we had always belonged to one another, simply hesitating to make the first move. As I carefully unfastened her shirt buttons, my hands trembled ever so slightly, not with desire, yet infused with feeling. With every layer of fabric that descended, a fragment of the past was relinquished. The unseen wounds, a deep-seated apprehension of physical contact, the recollections of having been exploited, gradually withdrew. She remained poised in that moment, vulnerable in both body and spirit. "Do you truly believe that?" she inquired. Her voice was a gentle whisper. "What exactly are you certain about?" I inquired once more. "On the matter of selecting me." With a determined stride, I advanced, embracing her tightly. "I am not shattered. You are simply wounded. Yet here you remain, ever enchanting." It remains genuine. Her body melted into my embrace. It was as though she had at last permitted herself to rely on another, casting aside the dread of being cast aside. We embraced each other with a gentle, unhurried passion. That night was unlike any I had ever experienced before. It was not a night ablaze with longing, yet it is a voyage steeped in trust. Each caress, with each breath, a question lingered in the air. "Are you all right?" With each embrace, Celeste's grip grew more fervent, reacting with her form and her gaze. I was aware of what the answer was. Indeed, this moment, I make my selection. In the stillness of the night, her voice floated softly, calling my name. With a gentle sigh, as though reaching for something divine that she scarcely allowed herself to believe existed, I softly echoed her name, not in the manner a man addresses a woman, yet as an individual, affirming that she had discovered what she had long sought. We reclined next to each other in the shadows of the night. Silence enveloped us. The air conditioner hummed softly, reminiscent of the room's steady breathing. Beyond the transparent barrier of the glass door, the streetlights cast a glow on the palm branches dancing gently in the night breeze. Celeste leaned her head against my chest. Her fingers danced in gentle circles upon my skin, unhurried, unwavering, directionless. A means to connect, while still holding on. After a long stretch of time, she spoke in a gentle whisper. "I don't sense the need to compel myself into being cherished." I remained silent. I drew her closer, my arms wrapping tightly around her. A silent recognition. "Ethan," she murmured softly afterward, "you are truly one of a kind. Favorable or unfavorable, so remarkable that it sends a shiver down my spine." Her words carried a sincerity I had never encountered before. I inclined my head just a fraction, pressing my lips against the tousled strands, fragrant with the scent of shampoo. "It is perfectly acceptable to feel fear," I declared, "as long as you remain present." Her lips curled into a smile. The subtle shift of her cheekbone brushing against mine sent a shiver through me. The morning light gently caressed the blinds as we stirred from our slumber. Neither of us felt the urgency to rise. We both acknowledged the reality of that night, leaving no room for pretense. She was the first to sit up. She enveloped herself in the blanket, a familiar ritual that had long been her solace. Yet, as she pivoted to meet my gaze, her eyes had shed their armor, a mere hint of a smile, cozy and slightly flustered. "Your hair is quite disheveled. A crow's nest possesses a certain charm," I proclaimed, "provided that it contains genuine birds within its confines." She gently shook her head. He smiled. She rose to make her way to the bathroom. As the door clicked shut behind her, the sound of her laughter echoed softly through the timber, a playful melody that lingered in the air. The sound etched itself into my memory, destined to linger for all time. On that particular morning, we enjoyed our breakfast in the serene backyard of the resort, a locale adorned with white umbrellas, tables crafted from wood, and flourishing cacti alongside steaming coffee. Celeste donned a flowing maxi dress in warm, natural tones. The sunlight danced upon her tanned skin, and the smile that perpetually graced her lips. She appeared unbound, refusing to wear a mask of normalcy, yet the resemblance of one who had recently shed a weighty load. It had lingered upon her shoulders for years, a burden she could not shake off. "You're aware," she uttered. She swirled her spoon through the depths of her coffee. "I believed I would never desire the closeness of another in slumber again, not due to intimacy, due to the sensation of being acknowledged. What comes next?" Her gaze met mine directly. "If I were in your position, I would consider the following. No longer would I need to conceal it." The hours drifted by, marked by a succession of relaxed walks. We visited a secondhand bookstore, acquired a petite cactus, which she affectionately named Frankie, and captured images beside the vibrant bougainvillea wall. Last night went unspoken by anyone, yet it was unnecessary. Celeste's grip on my hand as we navigated the street was both tender and reassuring. Her head rested gently on my shoulder during the car ride back to the resort. Her laughter rang out like music when I inadvertently knocked over my drink. Everything pointed to a singular conclusion. Last night was not merely a fleeting occurrence. It marked the beginning. On a Monday morning, we found ourselves back in Willow Creek. The atmosphere was tranquil. The clouds meandered lazily, as though they were intent on stretching the holiday just a little longer. The silence in the car was palpable, with few words exchanged among the passengers. Yet the silence had ceased to be mere distance. It was the tranquility of two souls who had just emerged from the pages of a fresh narrative, and we were about to unveil the next one together. As we stepped into the yard, Scout let out a resounding bark. He leaped to his feet, raking my fingers across my leg as though to chastise me. "What has kept you away from home for such an extended period?" Celeste erupted into a hearty laugh. She knelt down, wrapping her arms around the golden retriever, pulling it close to her chest. I paused, frozen in place for a heartbeat. Gazing upon them, a sense of belonging washes over me. The space felt known yet transformed, a shadow of its former self. Celeste's house was unexpectedly adorned with a fresh hue, not due to any repainting or extra embellishments. Yet, for the first time, I stepped into it as one who intended to remain, not merely an individual who happened to stroll by. The days that followed unfolded in a serene cadence. I continued to make my way to the office each day, trimming the verdant expanse of grass, providing sustenance to the greenery, modifying the irrigation system for a villa by the lake. Yet each afternoon, I find myself pausing at her doorstep. At times, it's simply about delivering a refreshing cup of tea. At times, we find ourselves tending to the garden, side by side. There are days when I arrive without any particular purpose, and that is perfectly acceptable. Celeste stands apart. She dedicates a greater portion of her time to the art of writing. rearranging the contents of antiquated drawers, removing items that have lingered for far too long. On a particular day, I caught sight of her perched on the porch, ripping pages from a weathered diary and letting them dance away in the breeze. I did not inquire. I merely took a seat beside her, in quietude alongside her. Her smile became more frequent. Moreover, she beamed, unashamed of her joy. On a Wednesday evening, we found ourselves seated on the porch, Scout sprawled comfortably at her feet. The gentle breeze wafts the fragrance of freshly blossomed roses. Celeste cradled a steaming cup of tea in her hands, gently rotating the porcelain cup as if lost in contemplation. After Palm Springs, I found myself reflecting. I would return to discover things that had aged. She uttered a response, yet it was a firm no. A sense of buoyancy enveloped me. It was due to change, I remarked. Or perhaps it was your influence that liberated me from my self-imposed isolation, she remarked, glancing in my direction. I chose not to engage in a dispute. However, I also refrained from claiming any credit. I simply stood outside, biding my time. I remarked, "You have unlatched the door on that evening, just prior to my departure." She presented me with a modest cardboard box. I unsealed it. Within lay a pristine, white ceramic mug, inscribed along the edge, "The finest neighbor one could ever hope for." A chuckle escaped my lips, a gentle nudge to remind you that at the end of the day, you remain merely a neighbor. I made a jest. "Gratitude for your steadfast presence," she uttered. Her voice was more delicate than any twilight I had ever experienced. As I gazed into her eyes, and for the first time since my return, it was no longer under watchful eyes, yet a door ajar, expansive and genuine. Ever since I got the white mug adorned with those words, "the most wonderful neighbor one could ever hope for," I started to observe subtle shifts in my surroundings. Celeste ceased to illuminate the porch with the nightly glow of the light. Due to her fear of the dark, she ignited the candles, their flames flickering to life. She immersed herself in the smooth, soulful rhythms of jazz, what she had previously described as boisterous and amusing. Yet now it resonates through the kitchen speakers each afternoon. And most significantly, she started to utter my name with increasing frequency. Gone are the days of the remote cultivator, or perhaps Ethan, yet Ethan as effortlessly as though it had always existed in that very space. On a serene Sunday morning, I presented her with a selection of homegrown tomatoes, a bag filled with warm bagels. As I ascended the steps, Scout dashed out. There stood Celeste, framed in the doorway, without any makeup. Her hair was gathered in a loose tie, yet her eyes gleamed with brilliance. "Will you truly indulge in the bagels all by yourself?" she inquired. I raised the bag aloft. Your intuition was spot on. We enjoyed our breakfast on the porch. Our bare feet rested casually on the arm of a chair, observing the sunlight as it dances through the branches of the trees in the front yard. With delicate fingers, she stripped the skin from the tomato. Then, quite unexpectedly, it was said, "Ethan, I'm uncertain about our precise location." My gaze fell upon her. "I prefer not to label this just yet," she pressed on. "I prefer not to reshape it into a new form that I must struggle to fit into. I inclined my head in agreement. A name is unnecessary. Understand that my desire is to be with you each and every day. She hesitated. In that moment, a smile graced her lips. She leaned down to savor a bite of her bagel. What a clever observation. I absorbed this wisdom from an individual who resided within a shell for a decade and a half, yet remained kind throughout the experience. This time, her lips did not curve into a smile. She cast a lingering gaze in my direction. That left me feeling exposed, yet free from judgment. She rose to her feet and made her way into the house. Moments later, she made her way back, cradling a time-worn wedding ring box. She settled beside me and lifted the lid of the box. Within lay a muted silver wedding band. I held onto it for an eternity. She spoke. I believed that by releasing it, I could find peace. I had encountered defeat. I remained silent. Yet, on this day, I ponder. Her gaze met mine. I did not experience failure. I have existed. I experienced it fully. With a gentle motion, she closed the box and placed it on the table. The closure failed to produce a pronounced click. Yet deep within my heart, it felt as though the past was being sealed away. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow across the sky, the evening unfolded. As I stepped away from the porch, Celeste did not accompany me to the door as she typically would. She grasped my hand softly, her fingers wrapping around mine with a tender squeeze. Then she spoke. "Ethan, I find myself at a loss regarding the direction in which we are headed. However, if they choose to stand by your side, in that case, fear holds no power over me." I bent low and pressed my lips to the delicate curve of her hand. There's no necessity for me to grasp every detail. Rest assured, you are here to stay. She inclined her head in agreement. After that, I stepped back inside the house and shut the door behind me, unrestricted, not overwhelmed, merely sufficient to prevent the wind from extinguishing the candle flickering on the table. And I found myself standing there, upon the steps, within that muted golden glow, experiencing clarity like never before. What we shared was beyond the confines of a label, yet it was undeniably authentic. The afternoon unfolded with a clarity that was almost palpable. The golden rays of autumn sunlight filtered softly through the branches of the trees, glimmering upon the calm surface. The lake's surface gleamed with a reflective quality, akin to a polished mirror. The breeze whispered softly, stirring the golden leaves into a gentle dance, to coax Scout into lifting his head from the grass with a languid grace, then nestle back into slumber. Celeste and I strolled around the lake, just as we did on countless afternoons before. Her hands found their way into mine effortlessly, not with the same timidity as before. Uninvited, it had always existed in that space. We settled onto the weathered wooden bench beside the tranquil lake, the location that bore witness to the initial hushes, the tentative grins, and the unfinished tales. I was certain of my readiness, not through a speech, neither with roses nor with romantic melodies. A modest ring box nestled within the confines of my coat pocket, where I had placed it upon my return from Palm Springs. I held it close each moment spent in her presence, anticipating the perfect opportunity. Celeste removed her canvas slippers and rested her feet on the bench. She cradled the cup of tea she had brought from home in her hand. Her gaze drifted across the expanse of the lake. "Ethan," she finally spoke, breaking the stillness that hung between them. "I once believed that solitude would be my only companion in the twilight of my years. I chose not to respond. At times, the most genuine expressions must be released into the ether before they can truly resonate. I still hold a belief in love, though it may have shifted over time." She pressed on. "I find it difficult to place my trust in others, especially when it comes to revealing my most vulnerable sides, the wounded fragments, or irritable, or painfully feeble." I glanced in her direction. "Do you realize something?" I inquired. "All of that brings me immense joy." Her lips curled into a smile. She inclined her head ever so slightly. "You have no idea who I once was. Once I held the reins of my life firmly in my grasp. Once I had meticulously charted the course of my life, minute by minute, as the weeks unfold, with each passing year. Yet with you, everything feels spontaneous. In that place, I find my greatest sense of security." My heart was laden, not with concern, yet from the maturation of my emotions. I released a breath. Gradually, I delved into my pocket. "Celeste." She pivoted. The sunlight cascaded upon her hair at the perfect instant. The brightness was such that I found myself nearly squinting. I sank to my knees, without any preparation. Silence reigns, devoid of any melodic undertones. Only she and I, entwined in the cadence that flows between us. I retrieved the petite box and lifted the lid with anticipation. The ring possessed a simplicity, crafted from white gold, straightforward and unembellished. Yet within, a solitary line was etched. "You possess all that you need within you." Her gaze fell upon the ring. "Then look at me." She raised her hand to shield her mouth. I spoke, my voice barely above a whisper. "I did not arrive with the intention of fulfilling you. You are already sufficient, sufficient to feel pain, sufficient to embody strength, sufficient to embody beauty in your unique manner. I arrived here seeking the company of someone who had triumphed over adversity and still possessed the capacity to love once more." Her eyes brimmed with unshed tears. She didn't weep, merely descended, gently and quietly, as if she had been restraining herself for an eternity. "Celeste," I declared, my gaze fixed unwaveringly upon hers, "would you do me the honor of becoming my spouse?" She hesitated before responding. She remained seated, her hands trembling ever so slightly. Her gaze held the essence of her soul. Then she smiled, her tears glistening like jewels, and spoke gently. I envisioned the proposal emerging from a source I would have to fiercely defend. Yet you arrived, and you never caused me to falter. She extended her hand. Indeed. I gently slid the ring onto her finger. It nestled into place as though it had been anticipating her arrival. It was as though she had been anticipating this moment for an eternity. Yet it was only when she ceased her searching that it finally arrived. She embraced me with fervor, not the embrace of one who is tumbling and seeks to hold on. Yet it is the embrace of an individual who has risen and made the conscious decision to journey alongside another. As we rose to our feet, the sun hung low on the horizon, its light fading into the embrace of twilight. Scout dashed forward. He sprang up as though he had just caught wind of the proposal himself. Celeste offered a gentle smile and pressed a soft kiss upon my forehead. "Are you aware?" she murmured softly. "I ought to have opened the door for you earlier." I grasped her hand gently and spoke. "Negative. You unveiled it precisely at the moment you were prepared. That only fueled my desire to enter even further." We intertwined our fingers and strolled toward the house. As the day draws to a close, beneath the crimson sky, every step was confident, not due to our foresight of what was to come. Yet it was our mutual decision to embrace the present that guided us. The afternoon unfolded beneath a pristine sky. The golden rays of autumn sunlight filtered softly through the branches of the trees. The lake's surface, calm and reflective, mirrors the world around it. The wind whispered softly, coaxing the yellow leaves into a gentle dance, to coax Scout into lifting his head from the grass with a languid grace, then nestle back into slumber. Celeste and I strolled around the lake, just as we did on countless afternoons before. Her hands found their way into mine effortlessly, not with the same timidity as before, uninvited. It had always existed in the background. We settled onto the weathered wooden bench beside the tranquil lake, the location that had borne witness to the inaugural moments of stillness, the tentative grins, and the unfinished tales. In that moment, a quiet confidence enveloped me, affirming that I was ready for whatever lay ahead, not through a speech, neither with roses nor with romantic melodies. A modest ring box nestled within the confines of my coat pocket, where I had placed it upon my return from Palm Springs. I held it close, a constant companion in every moment spent by her side, anticipating the perfect opportunity. Celeste removed her canvas slippers and rested her feet upon the bench. She cradled the cup of tea she had lovingly brought from home. Her gaze drifted across the expanse of the lake. "Ethan," she finally spoke, breaking the stillness that hung between them. "I once believed that solitude would be my only companion in the twilight of my years. I chose not to respond. At times, the most genuine expressions must be released into the ether before they can truly resonate. It's not that I've lost faith in love altogether," she pressed on. "I find it difficult to place my trust in others, especially when it comes to revealing the darker facets of my being, the wounded fragments, or irritable, or painfully feeble." I glanced in her direction. "Do you realize something?" I inquired. "I'm utterly enamored with every bit of it." Her lips curved into a smile. She inclined her head ever so slightly. "You have no idea of the person I once was. Once, I held the reins of my life firmly in my grasp. Once, I meticulously orchestrated my life, scheduling each hour with precision. As the weeks unfold, with each passing year, yet with you, everything is spontaneous. In that place, I find my greatest sense of security. My heart is laden, not with concern, yet from the maturation of my emotions. I released a breath, gradually, and delved into my pocket. Celeste. She pivoted. The sunlight cascaded upon her hair at the perfect instant. The brightness was so intense that I found myself nearly squinting. I sank to my knees. Without any preparation, silence reigns, devoid of any melodic accompaniment. It's just the two of us, entwined in the cadence that flows between us. I retrieved the petite box and lifted the lid with anticipation. The ring possessed an understated elegance, crafted from white gold, straightforward and unembellished. Yet within, a solitary line was etched. You are already sufficient. Her gaze fell upon the ring. Then look at me. She raised her hand to conceal her mouth. I spoke, my voice barely above a whisper. I did not arrive with the intention of fulfilling you. You possess all that you need within you, more than sufficient to cause pain, sufficient to embody strength, sufficient to embody beauty. In your unique manner, I arrived here seeking the company of someone who had triumphed over every obstacle, and yet they found the courage to love once more. Her eyes brimmed with unshed tears. She refrained from sobbing. Simply let yourself descend, gently and quietly, as if she had been restraining herself for an eternity. Celeste, I spoke. My gaze remained fixed upon hers. Would you do me the honor of becoming my spouse? She hesitated before responding. She lingered in that spot. Her hands trembled ever so slightly. Her gaze held the essence of her soul. Then she smiled, even as tears streamed down her face, and spoke in a gentle whisper. I anticipated that the proposal would emerge from a source I would need to struggle to retain. Yet, you arrived. You never caused me any strife. She extended her hand. Indeed, with a gentle motion, I slid the ring onto her finger. It is a flawless fit, as though it had been anticipating her arrival. It was as though she had been anticipating this moment for an eternity. It was only in the moment she ceased her searching that it finally arrived. She enveloped me in her embrace, with great precision, not the embrace of one who is tumbling and seeks to grasp tightly, yet the embrace of one who has risen and selected to journey alongside another. As we rose to our feet, the sun hung low in the sky, its descent nearly complete. Scout dashed forward, leaping to his feet as though he had caught wind of the suggestion firsthand. Celeste offered a gentle smile and pressed a soft kiss to my forehead. Are you aware? She lamented. I ought to have opened the door for you earlier. I grasped her hand tightly and spoke. Negative. You arrived at the perfect moment. When the moment arrived for you, that only intensified my desire to enter. We intertwined our fingers and strolled toward the house. Beneath the crimson heavens, as twilight descends, every stride was deliberate, not due to our foresight of what was to come. Yet it was our mutual decision to embrace the now that guided us. We began to refer to one another, using various names. I dialed her number, and she referred to me as the keeper of the wind. For that reason, in her own words, I'm not compelling you to alter your course. I'm merely ensuring you don't get carried off by the tide. During those drizzly twilight hours, we would recline on the sofa, Scout and Pepper nestled between us, akin to a feather pillow that held the promise of movement. Celeste immersed herself in the pages of her book. I immersed myself in melodies or tended to various tasks around the home. There was no necessity for incessant chatter. The stillness had lost its fearsome grip. It was woven into the fabric of our closeness. One fateful day, I inadvertently toppled a jar of fish sauce in the kitchen. The aroma was overpowering, scattered across the floor, and thus ensued a chaotic endeavor of tidying up. I anticipated her anger, yet Celeste remained motionless, with arms crossed, observing as I glide the mop across the floor, adorned in her pink gloves, and then erupted into laughter. "You chose the perfect partner," she uttered, "for the simple reason that few would have the audacity to employ this floral towel for the task of soaking up fish sauce." On a day in the heart of March, we strolled to the ancient lake, the very spot where the proposal had unfolded. The air was crisp and cool. However, it is evident the trees remained in their slumber. Just a handful of buds have started to emerge. She gazed at the water. Then they turned to me. "Ethan?" I glanced over my shoulder. I find myself questioning whether I truly understand the art of love. Yet there is one certainty I hold dear. With the dawn of each new day, as I rise from slumber, I long to turn and find you still present. I grasped her hand tightly. What if I choose not to? It seems I find myself downstairs, engaged in the unfortunate task of incinerating sandwiches. "Isn't that so?" Her laughter rang out. I merely shrugged. "It is likely." She rested her head against my shoulder and murmured softly, "Are we on the right track then?" I'm uncertain. Yet what if this is incorrect? In that case, I no longer wish to be correct. I'm uncertain how to articulate the connection that exists between Celeste and me. It began without flames. A door stood ajar, hinting at the mysteries that lay beyond. A modest flower pot, a rejection at an inopportune time, and a subtle nod at just the right moment. We were far from flawless. She was shattered. Fear gripped me. Yet with each passing day, we made the decision to remain, not out of necessity, yet it was simply because we desired to. If someone were to inquire about the essence of love, I would refrain from providing a definition. I would simply recount the afternoon spent by the lake, the aged wooden chair, and the 42-year-old woman who believed she had outgrown the possibility of being loved. Yet they still consented to grasp my hand, 17 years her junior, to persist in our journey side by side. And I would declare, love is not bound by the constraints of perfection. It simply must be authentic and sufficient to be deemed as remaining. Unexpected tales from teen life.